Greetings, my name is Diana Dembe Mutondo and I'm your host for the second episode of Africa's Governance Voices. Today we'll be taking you through a very interesting topic, which is credit ratings in Africa. It's a very topical topic, and today we have invited Dr. Misheck Mutize to tell us a bit more about it. So Dr. Mutize, I wish you a warm welcome. And I think what we will start to ask is, what is this credit rating? What are the implications for the continent and even citizen? What is it?
Thank you for having me. Let me start by presenting a broad context of why credit ratings are important, not just to Africa, but to all its citizens, including yourself. So credit rating agencies are the ones that provide the ratings with the sole purpose of doing a credit assessment of how much risk perception is associated with a borrower who needs money and repay it in the future debt. So it means that if that perception of risk is high from the risk-return trade-off principle, then it means that the cost of borrowing or the interest that borrower has to pay will be high. So because Africa needs to be borrowing a lot more than it was doing before, due to the declining alternative source of funding from the concessionary channels and from the donor channels, then it has to consider financial market borrowing through instruments such as bonds and other loans from private creditors. So that's why credit ratings are important. So technically it means nobody can borrow without an assessment from credit rating agencies. And it's also important to individuals, because when the perception of a risk is high and you have a personal loan or a car loan at an individual level, it means that you have to pay more from your salaries. That's why this topic has been of interest over the past few years. And why we are working on the Africa credit rating agencies is because of the concern that has been raised at the highest decision level of the African Union, that we need to address the risk perception, which has become more pessimistic over the years, branding Africa as a risky continent despite capital still following to the continent.
Okay, not very good. I think what I'd like to ask as a follow-up question, just to understand the topic a bit better, is that you've mentioned APRM, which is the Africa Credit Rating Agency. But what has been the process really to bring and see this agency coming to life? Recently in Addis Ababa, there's been a presidential breakfast who really brought light to this agency for a lot of people who didn't know about it. They actually got to hear about it. But what will be the purpose of this agency? But more importantly, what has been the process and where is it leading us to?
Absolutely. The Africa Credit Rating Agency, I think, has been a very interesting project, even for us who are in the middle of driving the process. This idea emerged from the ministers of finance way back in 2020 at a platform of the African Union called the Specialized Technical Committee of Ministers of Finance. So it's a major policy organ of the African Union, who tasked us to explore if establishing an Africa Credit Rating Agency is a feasible option to address the long-term misalignment of perception of risk, because they felt, in their view and wisdom, that the perception of risk in Africa is overstated, and there is extreme caution from the three international credit rating agencies who dominate the industry, on their view of risk of African instruments. So we did since then several studies to assess the feasibility, to inform the decision that we later recommended to the same platform that it's feasible to establish that institution, although as an independent entity outside the African Union, for two key variables that are very important to this business, one being credibility and independence, as well as a market buy-in. So they adopted the declaration that it should be established on a self-funded and private sector-driven basis, so that there is lack of conflict of interest, which will completely disqualify the relevance of that institution on the market. So since then, we have undertaken the processes that has led us to the breakfast meeting that you have mentioned, the presidential breakfast on the 14th of February in Addis Ababa. So that process was mainly first to update our principals, who are the heads of state, that we are making progress on the agenda that they have tasked us to implement. And secondly, that we need to publicize and garner some support for this institution as we undertake the next steps of operationalizing it.
Thank you very much. So, if I may ask, then the credit rating agency is funded on, credibility, and APRM has really been a driver into this whole process so far with the support of the African Union. But what will be the next step in terms of the agency? What will be the involvement and the role of the APRM and the African Union at large?
Well, that's a very fundamental question that I think everyone who is invested in this agenda would want to understand how the African Union and the APRM in particular will be still involved. At length, I would highlight that the funding model that we have recommended to our ministers and all the policy organs is for this entity to be self-funded, not to have any links in terms of funding to the African Union, because also of the issue of a member states burden, in that we need investors who utilize the information from such an entity to have a confidence in the opinions that are issued by this agency. So we expect this institution to have its own shareholders, who also have the spirit of driving the Pan-African agenda of redressing the perceptions that I've mentioned, and also that it should be able to fund its operations to bring competent people to undertake the analysis in terms of credit opinions. So on the next steps that we'll undertake from here, we have, as of now, engaged the services of a transaction advisory firm, which is a well-established capital markets firm, to assist the mechanism to mobilize the shareholding as well as the capital that will support the balance sheet and the operational cost that is needed to operationalize the institution. And going forward, in terms of the involvement, I think since it is clear that since we have been at the center of babysitting this process, we'll still be involved as part of the stakeholder network of the agency once it's able to sustain its own operations. So as of the the operationalization stage, we are funding the processes of road shows to identify the right shareholders and to educate the market on the importance of ratings, because the African market, especially at corporate level, where we expect this agency to cement most of its revenue streams, has not been well acquainted with the subject of credit ratings because of its complexities, and also to identify the right shareholders. We are very optimistic because we have received a lot of support from the market since the breakfast meeting, and even before that. But after the breakfast meeting, I think a wider network of stakeholders has become aware of the progress that we have made on the agenda. So it's a very important task that we are undertaking, that we identify the right shareholders, not just in terms of the capacity that they bring and the capital that they bring to the institution, but also to ensure sustainability, and that they also carry the same purpose and the same ideas that the institution was being established for. Post its establishment, will still be undertaking an active role in mobilizing our member states to subscribe to the services of this institution, and to support in educating the market to make use of credit rating services, to inform them on the importance of it and how it supports their own balance sheet, because once they go to the market to raise more capital, they need some transparency from the ratings report.
Now, my last question would be: when do you foresee the establishment of this agency?
Well, we are quite optimistic that by July this year, we should have some form of a skeleton structure that will be in place. At least they've identified the rightful interim CEO of this institution, as well as key personnel, like the chair of the rating committee and perhaps the chair of the board. Would have identified that in the next few months, because we are also having some working sessions with the technical advisory team that is supporting us in that exercise. So we are very optimistic that by July this year, we should have some form of a skeleton structure. And just to preempt that, we have had several inquiries from institutions that want to collaborate with us to run the processes of methodology on their systems, to support with the data provision, and to support with seconding their personnel to be part of the initial interim team that will be executing the initial ratings. So that to us, it's a vote of confidence that there are so many possibilities that have been put before us to be able to bring this institution to life.
Well, that's fantastic. I think I need to congratulate you for this amazing work which you are doing with the team and with the partners also which are involved. And I think with that, I would like to call our audience, really to keep an eye open on all these developments, because this is definitely something that we should look forward to in 2025. And to keep up with the conversation, please, you are welcome to follow APRM pages on Facebook and X as well, and LinkedIn. And this will be shared with you at the bottom of the screen. Thank you very much, Dr. Mutize. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.